Finding the break and riding the wave. This one was different. Not only was Bert's first ever podcast, but it might be just the longest backstory in the history of the Better the Pond podcast. And trust me, it was worth every second. We caught up with Burt Dew from Chapel Hill Tire, and what started as a chat about a tire business turned into a deep ride through his life swells. From childhood moves and classroom struggles to career pivots, heartbreak, and healing, this conversation was all about finding your break. Not just in surfing, what Burt loves, but in life. That elusive moment when everything finally aligns and pulls you in the momentum and it drives you forward. Bert shared what it means to work with heart, lead with integrity, and show up as your authentic self, especially when the waves are rough. We talked about automotive hospitality, but more importantly, we talked about being human. This episode isn't polished, it's not scripted, and it sure as hell isn't shallow. It's raw, real, and riding the edge of authenticity. My name is Warren Berry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions. And get ready to take a deep dive on the Better the Pond podcast with my very special guest, Burt Dew. Burt Dew, all the way from Raleigh, North Carolina. Very southern boy. This guy, Burt Dew, is I met him in Raleigh. Vistage, we're gonna give a little shout out to Victor Watts. But I met you, and I have to say, you are the master of quality, the master of ingenious ideas, all around great guy, probably the best beard I've ever had on the podcast. Burt Dew from Chapel Hill Tire. I am ecstatic to have you on the Better the Pond podcast.
Warren, I really appreciate you having me, man. Excited to do this. Full transparency, this is my first podcast, so excuse me. Um, but I'm stoked to be here and grateful for the opportunity to just be able to have a conversation with you.
Awesome. So I met you, as I said earlier, I met you at your Vistage group, which sending another shout out to Victor Watts. And you, my friend, because you're such a genius, were the winner of the Almighty James Pond Award. And that's why you're here. This was not just given, Bert, this was earned.
Right on, man. I appreciate it again. I've got the golden goose here in my office and look at him on a daily basis to remind me that I've got the pack flying behind me and the V is strong.
All right, Bert, I can tell already we are going to have an absolute ton of fun, and my audience is going to have a good giggle, and they're going to learn a ton from you. So before we jump into my sort of first question, is you have to answer the question because I think it's going to be the framework of how today is going to roll. Okay, I'm going to ask you the question. Ready? Rules are made to be.
Broken.
Thank you, and here we go. All right, so. This is gonna be the framework. Uh, so Bert, so first of all, tell my audience a little bit about Chapel Hill Tire. So who are you? What do you do? What are you about? And tell a little bit of the story of Chapel Hill.
So Chapel Hill Tire is a family-owned business. Been in the game since 1953. At this current time, we've got 12 operating repair locations, and we've got uh, one automotive detail that's a mobile service
Hmm.
that we have on site as well as at your home or at your business. And soon to open a 13th location here in Raleigh. So rapidly growing, values-driven company. Definitely have a great vision. Vision here at Chapel Hill Tires: work happy, drive happy. Which, if you don't love to smile, maybe we shouldn't be friends. But really good things. I value the company that I work for, and I've worked for numerous other companies, and this one really doesn't just talk the talk. We're walking the walk here, and it's good stuff. You come to work, and it's nice when you come to work, and it's not a dreadful thought. I work with my friends. Um, they just happen to be my coworkers, so it's pretty dope.
That's cool. So when you look at there's a lot of automotive and tire shops out there. I mean, and there's no shortage. If I was someone who was looking for tires, automotive service, detailing, the things that you do, um, why should I come to Chapel Hill?
It's all about the experience with us. This isn't just another repair shop. We're in the business of automotive hospitality. We're taking it to
Oh,
the next level. Um, and we're trying to give you not customer service, but customer experience. And that's from when you first pull into the parking lot to when you leave here. Um, our reviews say everything. Walked in, talked to this guy, had a conversation with him on the phone, and everything was exactly the way he told me it was going to be from the beginning to the end. And so I just think we're a differentiator in that world. Like there's, like you said, there's so much competition, and we are in the commodity business. So when I think about places that I want to do business with, I like to do business with people that make me feel value and make me feel good. And that's what we're doing here.
so it's making it, so really in the end of the day, it's about making people feel good. You just happen to give them a set of tires along with it.
Yeah, we just happen to fix cars in the meantime, but we're all about creating relationships.
I love it. It's interesting. You said you're in the automotive hospitality industry, and that's pretty cool. And you know what I always tell companies when I work with them, I said never ever give good or great customer service ever again, because customer service drives process, hospitality drives care. So you want to give
100%.
hospitality, and there's a big differential between the two. And I think in your industry and in the automotive industry as a whole over time is that there has been a lot of dishonesty, and it's you can go into a shop and your brakes could be at 50%, and I've seen it, oh, you need new brakes, right? And the consumer has absolutely no idea, like they have no clue that, like okay, I guess so, geez, I got them done last year. Wow, maybe I've drove, like they don't know, and so there can be a lot of dishonesty in the industry itself. And so, being a very big values-driven company, I would be fair to say that Chapel Hill Tire would never ever do that to their customer.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. I mean, integrity is top of the line for us. That's the way we operate. That's the way we operate at all locations. I mean, we're going to hire honest people that, you know, want to build relationships and harness that ability to be true and transparent. And that's something that we're really just trying to change the game with. Um, like you said, there's been so much negative connotation around automotive repair for dishonesty, and we're trying to break the mold here.
Hmm.
And it is through building relationships and being honest and transparent. And we have multiple ways of doing that. And for me, that's something that uh, is extremely critical in life is just honesty and integrity.
So last question, I'm gonna put you a little bit on the spot, Bert, because I know that you like that anyway. As when somebody comes in to your location, right? What's the sparkle? What's the glitter? What's the differentiator that Bert provides that somebody gets really attracted to your location?
I just think the cleanliness that the store has, the welcoming abilities that all of our guys have on the counter. Um, I love to walk through the waiting room and introduce myself to customers. I mean, not to be like I'm the manager here, but just, see how they're doing. How's their day going? And um, maybe I know them, maybe I don't, but I hope to know them going forward.
So what I heard from you is that when you walk through the waiting room and introduce yourself, you don't introduce yourself as the manager, you introduce yourself as Bert.
100%.
Who wouldn't want to get to know Bert,
Right?
right?
That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. All right, so let's get into this. Thank you so much for that. So this is where I'm really intrigued, Bert. This is where let's see where this is going to go. So what got you from being a gosling? And I mean, like, so here's what I gotta be clear on this, right? Where were you hatched, right? Where did Burt Dew start life, right? So when were you a gosling to leaving the nest? And leaving the nest can be either like you went out on your own, right? Or you got pushed out and said, by the way, Bert, fly, hope it's fun. Right, to where you are today. Burt Dew, what is your backstory?
So we'll start off born here in North Carolina. I was actually born in Durham, North Carolina, and lived in Chapel Hill, ironically,
Huh.
for the first year of life. And then my parents were trying to figure it all out, and I'm the first of three. So kind of bounced around a little bit. So initially left North Carolina, went to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where my dad worked for Pizza Hut, just trying to make ends meet because he was originally promised a pretty big job with Rainbow vacuum cleaners. So if you haven't heard of Rainbow vacuum cleaners, you're probably not that old. Um, but it just didn't pan out. And so we lived there for a little while. And then he got into business with American Studios, which is a photography company, and started doing that in Greenville, South Carolina. So we moved there. And then shortly thereafter, continued to work for that company and moved to Atlanta, Georgia. We lived there for about a year where my brother was born. And that all kind of came off the rails. My dad's from Wilmington, North Carolina. So we ended up transitioning back to Wilmington, North Carolina. And that's pretty much where I grew up. That's where I raised, or that's where I was raised. And I think that's really what molded me to be the person that I am today. Like I'm a huge beach person, love the beach, big time surfer. Um, and I think that's part of what makes me who I am, because I just feel that the ocean is super freeing, and surfing is one of those things where you don't need hardly any detail to figure it out. You go stand on the beach for a few minutes, you read the lines of the waves, and you go paddle out and you go surf. And I think for me, that's kind of what life's all about is take a few minutes, read a couple of lines, and you get on with your day. Um, so I've kind of always looked at everything through the lens of surfing. Like if I can figure out where the break is, that's where I'm going to go.
Hmm.
Um, and same works in business. If you can figure out where the break is, that's where you should go. Um, so growing up down there, started surfing at about 8 years old and just never stopped. I love it so much. I just got a new surfboard this year, which I'm super stoked about. I've already had a chance to ride it 6 different times, which North Carolina haven't had a ton of waves, but still got out there and found some. Um, and it's been like a family thing. My mom loves the beach, not a surfer. Dad, same way, loves the beach, not a surfer. But me, my brother, and my sister, we're all surfers, and I'm the oldest of three. Um, my brother's 34, my sister's soon to be 30, and I'll be 38 this year. So it's good times, man. Something about just being in that family environment and being somewhere where you just don't feel any stress. That's super important to me. Um, and I feel like that in business. Like if I can have a family environment and have that support and not feel that stress, just because we're going to work every day, it doesn't feel like work. Um, so it's like the saying, do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life, and uh, that's just kind of the way I try to look at life. You know. Um, so going into your question, did I go out on my own or was I kicked out of the nest? So high school, I never really had any plans of what I wanted to do. And to this day, I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm just trying to have a good time every day. That's really what I'm trying to do. But I need to make money. That's the thing in life. You got to make money. And I haven't figured out the way to win the lottery yet because I don't play. So that's probably part of my problem. Um, but I was not really kicked out. My parents, it's funny, kind of like full circle situation. My grandfather actually owned a store, it was a cobbler store in Chapel Hill. It actually went on from 1916 until 2016. So it was a 100-year business before they actually closed their doors.
Really?
Oldest business in Chapel Hill. And the original owner of Chapel Hill Tire and my grandfather were friends, which is kind of funny. But my dad had promised to my grandpa, so his father-in-law, that he would go and take over his store if he ever got sick. And so he did get sick, and my dad ended up moving to Chapel Hill during the week when I was a junior in high school. And he was there from that point, which was 2004, until 2016. All that to be said, 2005, I graduated high school, and my family decided, hey, we're all going to move to Chapel Hill, and you have no plans for college. So it looks like you're coming with us. So reluctantly, I just wanted to stay in Wilmington. I don't want to go to Chapel Hill. I want to keep surfing and partying and having a good time with my friends, but to them, that wasn't a plan. So
To
we all
you, it
moved to
wasn't a
Chapel.
plan either. It was an idea.
Nah, it was an idea. It sounded like a good one at the time. Um, so we all moved to Chapel Hill. My brother's about to be, he's a rising freshman in high school. My sister's going into fifth grade, and I've got to go to college, according to my parents. You got to go. I'm like, okay. So we move up here, living on Franklin Street. If you know anything about Chapel Hill, it's the main drag in town. Moved into my grandfather's house. So it's nice that they already had a home there. I didn't really have to think too much about that. And my dad continued to run that business for the next 11 years. And at that point, I enrolled in school, um, Durham Tech Community College, and I really just did not want to do it. Like, I was not feeling it. I was just going through the motions because that's what they told me I needed to do. And really, all I wanted to do was have a good time. So I had a couple of buddies that were going to school at UNC Chapel Hill. Um, and we weren't super tight in high school, but we were friends. So connected with those guys. And I was like, this isn't going to be so bad. I'm going to do this school thing, but I'm going to be able to party at UNC Chapel Hill. Sounds great. And I had a good time. I had some friends at UNC Greensboro, so less than an hour away. Some friends at App State, some friends at NC State. So I'm like, this is not that bad. If I was in Wilmington, this would be a way longer drive. This might be harder to do. And Durham Tech, it was going, but I was just having a rough time. Like, I really did not like it. I'm in like a university transfer program, uh, you know, doing classes like pre-calculus and
Oh,
geology,
oh,
biology, English 101, all this stuff. And out of all the classes, I really didn't like any of them. Like, I was like, these all suck. And I did like geology because that was kind of, related to the earth. I thought it was cool. It's probably had a lot to do with the teacher. Like, she seemed like she really cared. But the other classes, I was just really having a hard time. And, all that being said, uh, semester in, I get an A in geology, B in English, and I fail pre-calculus because I just did not apply myself at all, and I didn't want to learn. Like, I was decent at math, um, and when I say decent, I got an A in geometry and like B's and C's and everything else in high school.
mhm.
Because the only thing I'm thinking about here is how can I play pool better? So I think geometry might have helped with that.
You have
Um,
angles.
yeah, I'm just like I don't really know. So um, at that point, I know I need to make some money. So I'm still gonna try to do this school thing, but my parents, well, they'll probably listen to this podcast and be like, "What? You failed pre-calculus?" Because I actually had somebody write me a fake report card, because I was like, "There's no way I'm gonna show them this failure on pre-calculus."
Rules are made
Um,
to be.
broken. Yep,
There we
we're breaking
go.
them over here. Um, so I continued on with school. Um, ended up meeting a girl who I was with for several years. Um, we didn't work out. I won't get into that. I'm not going to do any name calling here, but that just was not for me, to say the least.
Now remember,
But
Bert. Remember, Bert. You have to make a pretty thin pancake to realize it doesn't have two sides.
you're 100% correct there, Warren. So second semester, I'm like, my parents are like, you need to do college, but you also need to get a job. You're living with us. You need to make some money. Like, we're not paying for your gas, all this stuff. So I'm like, well, the only jobs I've had, before were just restaurant jobs. And I did have like a little landscaping business in Wilmington, which I didn't talk about that, but I had my own little landscaping business where I took care of a few yards in high school. So I just go and apply at like some chain restaurants and ended up working at this chain at a mall in Durham. And I was like, this is absolutely terrible. Like, I don't want to work with all these people. And like, I don't want to be a bus boy. And that's essentially what I was doing. And they're telling me, oh, you'll be a server. You'll be making some good money. Well, that the manager that told me that ends up getting fired. So at this point in time, I'm supposed to go into work one Friday night. They're calling me, you're going to be the only bus boy here. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going. And they're like, you have to come in. And just asked them, well, what are you going to do? And they just said, well, you have to come in. And I said, well, still don't really answer my question. Like, what's going to happen if I don't? And they're like, well, we'll fire you. And I said, okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I'm not ever coming back. So I just never went back because there was way more fun stuff to do in Chapel Hill on a Friday night than go bust tables at this chain restaurant. I'm not trying to do that. So I quit and ended up getting a job at a vitamin store. And I'm all about fitness and stuff like that. Ended up working for, I had like 6 different locations that I worked at for one point and actually made some really good friends doing that. Um, but knew that the amount of money I was making was just still not going to work. And I'm like, maybe my parents are right. Maybe this college thing is what I need to do. Maybe I really need to buckle down and start preparing for things in life. But look at us today. I mean, I prepare, but it's kind of off the cuff and I kind of know how to do it.
You're finding that was it? You're finding the what'd you call it? The break? You find the
Yeah,
break.
I'm finding the break. Exactly. So working for this place, I'm like, I like cars. I always have. Um, I have a really good friend. He's gone to school for automotive repair. And I'm like, I don't necessarily know that I want to work on cars professionally. Like, I don't want to do it with my hands. Like, I can, but I'm still just not feeling like that's what I want to do. I'm like, I don't think that's for me. But I do like talking to people and I do like building relationships. So he's like, well, you could work here and, be what's called a service advisor and help people out and sell them stuff. He's like, you know a lot about cars and, you figure stuff out and, you know how to de-escalate situations. And he's like, you've done it your whole life, with your siblings and your friends. And he's like, you're just that guy. And I'm like, okay, maybe that is a good idea. So start working for this place. This is 2007 and work for him for 3 years at this location. This is in Durham. And I'm like, I'm not bad at this. Like, and this is pretty easy. And I'm making some decent money. And we get to 2010, and that one-sided pancake relationship is just dissolving. We're like, we're done. Like, I'm done with this. I'd gotten engaged to this girl. I'm like, this is complete malarkey. I'll use that word. Um,
Malarkey. You're the first person to use malarkey on the podcast, by the way.
that's what I'm talking about. So, I'm feeling like Dave Chappelle, like I've eaten a bunch of ribs and I got the itis over here. And I'm like, I gotta get out of this thing, like I'm done. So I started looking into opportunities to transfer within this company. Like, how can I keep my job, um, but move back to the beach? Like, that's what I want to do. Again, I'm trying to find this break literally and figuratively. I'm like, I need to get back. I need to do what I need to do for me because living in the triangle right now is just not the right place for me. So put in a request for a transfer and it gets accepted. And I'm like, sweet, we're going to go back to the beach. We're going to have a good old time. I've got friends that now have graduated, dropped out from UNC, whatever the case may be, and they're back in Wilmington. So I'm like, we're going to hang out. I'm going to do this work thing and we're going to go to the beach a lot. So move back to Wilmington, break up with this girl, and life is good. We're having a good time. Still not making a ton of money, but hey, I live in a 1-bedroom loft. I don't need that much money. I've got a paid off car that I've had since I was 16. I'm 23 years old now. Everything seems to be going in the right direction. So I'm down here, I'm doing this job and go about a year in, start having a relationship with this girl. that I work with, which was not anything too serious. It was just a good time. Nothing really, transpires from the relationship, but work for some bad management. Didn't really have good leaders at this company, um, which this company has gone completely under, doesn't even exist anymore. They used to have automotive shops, they used to have retail space. I'm not name dropping them because they don't get that from me. They haven't paid me. Uh, but all that being said, 2012 happens, and going back to the rules are meant to be broken thing, I actually make a recording on this thing that's used to project promotions through our store. But I don't realize at the time this recorder is used for that. Um, and I make a little jingle, which I'm not going to say that now because it actually got me fired. Um, so get let go by this company on a Friday afternoon on my day off over the phone. The
Ooh.
HR team calls me and tells me they just want to let me know that they're going to let me go so I can make arrangements. And all I tell them is thanks. You know, what do I have to say at that point? I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to beg. I'm like, it's been a good run, but they're right. It's time to go. So all I'm thinking is, well, this is awesome because it's the summer and I'm at the beach and I have no job and I'm paying minimal rent now because I've moved out of this 1 bedroom loft into a house that my parents own. So I'm just having to give them a few $100 a month to live in a pretty sweet house with one of my really good friends. I'm like, what angle do I work here to continue forward? And I'm like, well, I could apply for unemployment. That sounds like a good idea, right? Let's apply for unemployment. But I could also make some money doing some residential construction with a guy. So if the federal government's listening to this in the United States, maybe they'll try to hit me, but I don't really care. Uh, so I started doing some residential construction a couple days a week with one of my buddies who's a general contractor. But the other days of the week, I'm just going to the beach. I'm surfing. I'm having a good time. Probably drinking too much. Uh, but I'm really enjoying my life. And this continues for like 6 months. And one day I'm on the beach having a conversation with my roommate and one of my best friends now. And he's like, dude, he's like, you're awesome. He's like, but it seems like at this point in time, you were just concerned about things that don't even matter. He's like, you just get so worried about the smallest things. And he's like, that's just not who you are. He's like, you need structure in your life and you need to find another job, like a real job. I'm like, this dude might be onto something. Maybe I do need to find a real job. As much as I hated to hear it, it was true. So I've got two other really good friends. They're identical twins. Their dad had started a marine construction company. And I'd always wanted to do, like construction on the water. I was like, cool, this will be awesome because not only will I be doing work on the water, but I'll be working with some good friends, maybe even do some underwater construction. And so that's what it kind of progresses into. And so we're doing all kinds of different jobs around Wilmington and like all of Eastern North Carolina. We're working on bulkheads and docks and things, in really beautiful places like Figure Eight Island. We're going to Atlantic Beach. We're doing Morehead City's ports. We're doing Wilmington, North Carolina's ports. And I'm working for some people that truly seem to care about me. And that was really gratifying. You get out of this space where you feel like nobody cared about you. And you start working for somebody that does. And it's a completely different trajectory than where I thought I would be when I left Chapel Hill and moved back to Wilmington. But it's something I learned a lot from. Um, my friend's dad was just a very smart dude and, visionary. And he was all about the family mentality of operating business and continued to work for them for a little over 3 years. And essentially, as soon as I started, I met a girl that ended up being my wife in the long haul. Great person, going to school at UNCW, very ambitious, very intelligent. And, we're coming up on her graduating from UNCW and talking about she's going to go to grad school. And I'm like, well, where do you think you want to go to grad school? And she's like, well, with the program that I'm in, I think UNC Greensboro would probably be a good school for me to go to, or, possibly East Carolina. And I'm like, well, let's not do East Carolina. Like, Greenville sucks. Like, you don't want to go there. So I'm trying to talk her out of it. Ultimately, she picks ACU against my advisement, which, hey, it's fine. We continue to be together, have a long distance relationship for about a year. Go through some ups and downs as any long distance relationship. And ultimately, I decide that if this relationship's going to work, I'm going to need to move. Like, I'm going to need to move to Greenville. She's going to finish grad school. There's no doubt about that. So I let my buddies know well in advance that, I'm not going to work for you guys. And we're still great friends to this day. But in the meantime, I had like a company vehicle that kind of got taken away. So I started having to drive my own truck. I'm like, I gotta get to Greenville so I can find another job. And so I'm like, after about 2 months, I'm like, I gave you guys basically a 2 months notice. Like, I'm gone. And so I moved to Greenville, North Carolina. No job, no plan. What else is new? Here we go again, right?
Find the break.
Finding the break. So I'm like, what do I know how to do? I'm like, well, I can operate heavy equipment because I did that with the marine construction company. So I go and apply at this company that does site work. I'm like, I'll go operate some excavators. That's pretty simple. Go work in a sand pit. Sounds terrible, but hey, I need to make some money. Um, Apply for that job, but at the same time, right before I'd moved to Greenville, I'd applied for the United States Postal Service because I was like, it'd be kind of cool to be a mailman. What do you really do anyways? You just deliver mail and talk to people all day. You don't do anything.
Would that be cool, Bert? Would that be cool?
Yeah, it could be cool, right? So I get a job offer from the post office essentially after I'd applied for this heavy equipment company. And I'm like, well, the post office is actually going to give me more money than operating machines. And that sounds like more of the business that I'm into, people business. Let's do this. So I proceed to work at the post office and become a mail carrier for a short amount of time, just shy of 2 years. And I'm thinking this won't be bad. The only day I really want off during the week is Sunday. So post office is closed on Sundays. At least that's what I thought. That was also when the Amazon acquisition happened. So it was a little, you know, defeating when I find out, actually, you're a new guy here and this place is all about tenure. You don't have a route and you're going to be working on Sundays. Oh, great. Here we go again. Doing something I don't want to do, but I'm going to do it anyways because I have to make income and this is what we're doing. So I make the most of it. When you first come onto the post office, if you're carrying mail, you don't have a route. And you essentially just need to learn as many routes as you can. That way, you're an asset to that post office. So I did. I learned every single route in the city of Greenville, and I did all of them. And I worked a lot. And the funny thing about that company, and this might go for most companies, is the harder you work, the more you're punished. And I'm like, this is insane. Like, I'm efficient. I do a good job. I have a good attitude. And I finished doing this route, and they're giving me more routes to do. So, Christmas time, I'm working from 7 in the morning until 9, 10 o'clock at night,
Ooh.
delivering packages. And I'm like, this is terrible. And all the people in this post office is the only one that's got mail carriers in the city of Greenville. These dudes are just camping out because they know they've got it made and they don't want to retire yet. So I just continue to go through the motions here. I really don't like the city of Greenville. There's nothing there. There's a college. And aside from that, there's a post office. So don't got a lot going on. And one day I get a phone call from a good friend of mine who still works for this company. And he said, hey, man, like, there's going to be an opportunity for you to come back or for you to come work at Chapel Hill Tire, and be a service advisor. I know you're really good. Like, we worked together back in the day at that other store. And would you be interested? And I was like, well, man, I mean, it sounds cool and everything, but I don't know how I'm going to float this. Like, I moved to Greenville to be with my girlfriend, and now I'm thinking about moving away and we're engaged. Like, what do I do? So I'm trying to figure that out. I'm like, what should I do? We had just leased a new apartment. I got a year lease. Do an interview with the manager at Chapel Hill Tire. And I think his initial thought was, oh God, a mailman. This guy can't be any good. Um, but he's like, oh, wow, you dressed up. You look good. I'm like, well, I like to not come into a interview unprepared, at least the way I look. Everything else, maybe. But I'm gonna look presentable, right? So he calls me back and offers me the job. And I was like, that's cool. When can I start? And he's like, I don't know, you tell me. And I was like, well, I just need to turn in a notice where I work now. And 2 weeks later, I've got a job at Chapel Hill Tire, October 2017. And I've got a lease in Greenville, North Carolina that goes until August of 2018. I'm like, how am I going to make this work? So, again, no real plan in place, but make a few phone calls, got some good friends, got some good family. And my brother lives in Raleigh at the time with his girlfriend, who's now his wife. And he's like, hey, man, you can just crash with us, while you work. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. I can do that. So I'll just drive up Monday mornings. I'll leave Greenville. It's about 2 hours to Chapel Hill. We open at 7:30. So if I leave Greenville at 5 a.m., I can be there. And so that's what I did. And then Friday afternoons, I drive back to Greenville and I stay there for the weekend. And I did that for just shy of 3 months. And about 2 months into it, I'm like, I have made a terrible decision. This was not planned. This was the way I run my life. And it's finally caught up to me. I've made a terrible mistake.
Couch surfing was not your thing.
Right. No, couch surfing was not. We were chasing the wrong break. I'm like, this is absolutely just a atrocity here. My brother and I, best friends. Dude is my ride or die, do anything for me, talk to him every day. And we started to have a little bit of a conflict. And it's not because of anything other than at this point I've invaded his space. It's a 1 bedroom. I'm essentially sleeping on a beanbag chair. Dude doesn't even have a couch. And I'm like, my back is broken. He's ready to, beat me. And I'm probably getting in the middle of his relationship. And he was like, man, we got to have a conversation. There's an ultimatum. You've got to figure some things out. Well, the whole while, my fiance and I have been trying to sublease this apartment in Greenville because she's graduated from ECU. She's got a job working for ECU. And the good thing about that was it could be remote. So we started looking at areas like, how can we make this work? And, you know, finally, we get somebody that wants to sublease our place. I'm like, this is cool. And this is in January, and they're ready to go. And we get them to sublease it, and we start looking at places that are like halfway between Chapel Hill and Greenville. And we find a place in Knightdale, North Carolina, which is a suburb of Raleigh, and start renting it. And I'm out of my brother's hair. Our relationship goes back to being copacetic. Me and him are tight again. And, all that time, I'm thinking this is a disaster. And I'm still driving to work like 45 minutes every day. So it's not like it's super close, but it's cut it in half. So it's at least doable. Um, I'm driving a truck that's not super good on gas. So I'm like, well, service advising, I'm not making a ton of money, but I'm making the best money that I've made. So this is good. And I like the company that I work for. So I'm like, this is not the worst decision I've ever made. So I start feeling better about it. Um, and that April 2018, I get married. And it's, great. Beautiful wedding. Um, Lovely honeymoon, get to go to Costa Rica, which I'm like, Always wanted to go there. Go there. Thanks to my parents.
Surfing.
Outstanding. Surfing. Exactly. Outstanding gift. Like, thank you for giving me what I want. You guys know what I like. I mean, experiences are so much more valuable to me than just items. So a year later, not even a year later, like 7 months later, start looking to buy a house. End up finding a house that we really like about a mile away from the apartment that we lived in Nightdale. And 2019, things are not too bad in terms of the economy and rates. We're getting a mortgage, and we're just like, this is awesome. And buy this house, which I still live in today, which is pretty cool. And through the time, working with Chapel Hill Tire, 10 months after I started at that location in Chapel Hill, we get an acquisition in Raleigh. This is 15 minutes from the house that I bought. I'm like, man, things are really coming together here. So I get a call from our general manager, and he asked if I want to transfer over to that store, knowing that I live close. So that just speaks to like really wanting to treat each other like family, which is one of Chapel Hill Tire's values. Like they are really thinking about you and, you know, want to take care of you and be there for you in a way that they say they're going to be and not just say it. So I go to this location and I work there um, from the summer of 2018. So really, even before I bought the house, was still living in the apartment in Nightdale until fall of 2021. And I find out in the winter of 2021 that we are expecting a child, and I'm elated. I've always wanted to have a kid. Like that's one of those things to me. Like I'm not a big planner, but you know, my wife at the time is. She's like the big planner. So you got this yin and this yang, and she just decides she's going to go off birth control, and here you go. 6 weeks later, we got a kid on the way. I'm like, dang, that was fast. I expected to go down like that. Um, and it's crazy how things work. But fall of 21, I'm starting to feel some financial pressure. I got this house, I'm able to afford it. She's got a good job, working still same company. But then starts trying to look at different options for herself. And I'm like, I need to make more money. Like that's bottom line. The location I'm working at is just not being super fruitful and the amount of money that I can make. And I've got a buddy that works for a huge dealership in Cary, North Carolina, which is right up the road from Nightdale. And I'm like, yeah, I think this is the play. So I apply there knowing that I can make more money because of the opportunity. So I leave Chapel Hill Tire, and I go over there, and everything promised about the money was true. Like I definitely made more money, and I was probably at my lowest point there though, because I left Chapel Hill Tire 2 weeks before my son was due to be born, and he was born. So I essentially had a week off between when I left Chapel Hill Tire and I went to work at this other company. And after working there for a couple of months, I just felt like I was at my lowest. Like I have a newborn baby. I'm gone from 6 in the morning till 6:30 at night. Um, the schedule sounded appealing. It was this rotation, but you were only working 4 days a week, but you're gone for 12 and a half, 13 hours every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, man, this is terrible. Like, why did I do this? Oh, great. I'm putting some money away. I'm saving some money. I got more money to be able to spend on my son, but I'm never home. I'm missing all this time that I'll never get back with him. He's not going to remember it, but I most certainly will. And I'm like, dude, money isn't everything. You worked for a company that cared about you, treated you well, and you left because you were thinking you needed to make more money, which, yeah, that can be true. But I guess just the amount of non-emotional connection I had at this place with my coworkers was so draining and so tiring that I had to make a decision. And that was either continue working there or hope that Chapel Hill Tire would want me to come back. Or Like, there's a third option, find a different company, but then that's a variable that I don't know what it's like. So, still been in constant communication with a bunch of people within the company here, and they're telling me they would love to have me back. And the location I'm at today at Crabtree Valley Mall was, up and coming. It was, an acquisition after the one that I worked at. So it's also in a very desirable location. I'm thinking, well, I could go back there, but at what position? And it will be service advisor again. So I knew the money wouldn't be what I was making at the dealership. But again, it was like a no brainer for me. If I'm driving to work every single day thinking about when's the next place I can do a U-turn and go back to my house, it was time to make a change. I was like, this cannot continue. So came back, had a couple of different conversations. I wouldn't even call them interviews with my now boss, but always a good friend to me over the course of time, and came back to work here, and it was great. Wasn't making the money that I was making at the dealership, but I was happy, and to me, that was important. I found that break again, like that balance. And I think that's something that Chapel Hill Tire does so well is they really care about their people and their, life work balance. We're not even going to say work life balance because I really think it's life work. Like if you live to work, are you really living? Like that's just kind of the way I look at it. Like, yeah, I spend a ton of time here. And I've got great friends and great relationships, but I've also got those outside of these walls and outside of this company. And if I can translate those work relationships into real relationships, then I'm winning. Um, so transition from service advisor to like parts and service coordinator at this store, and then the store manager of this store essentially is trying to decide if he wants to apply for this other location and move over there to try to help it. And I just decide that I'm really comfortable doing what I'm doing. Do I really want to run this place? I don't know. That's been asked. Like, would you be ready to step into the, management position at the store? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know that I'm really ready. Like, I'm pretty happy. Um, but I do need more money. And I'm like thinking, well, what? Maybe that is the play. Maybe I could still be happy and make more money. And I'm like, I've worked for some good leaders in the past. What is that sauce that they have? And I think that's really just treating people equally and treating people fairly and not having people that work for you, but people that work with you. Um, and that's what it was. It was like all those great leaders I had, I didn't work for them. I worked with them. And you can ask anybody in this shop, like they'll tell you if I ask them to do something, they know that I would do it for them or I would do it because I don't ever think I'm better than anybody and I never have. But I think that comes from modeling from good leaders that I've worked for in the past. Is anytime they would ask me to do something, I would know 100% that they would have already done it before they asked me. Um, and I've been doing this specific role since June of 23. So we're 2 years in. A lot's changed in my life personally. Uh, you know, my son now will be 4 at the end of October. I'm still living in the same house in Nightdale, but my wife and I have decided to no longer be together. And that's come through a lot of conversation and going through counseling and doing a lot of different things. But what's wild about that situation is me and her are still super tight. And full transparency, the reason we're not going to be together is because I'm not a girl and she's gay. That's the real reason. And I think initially when she told me, I was in shock, but I was also a little bit relieved that it wasn't another guy. And it's funny because my sister asked me, why does that give me relief? And I could not give her an answer. And then I told her, I don't have to give you an answer. And she respected that. Um, but genuinely, I'm super happy where I'm at now. And I'm happy for her that she's found what she really needs because I think every human deserves that. And the fact that we can co-parent our son in the way that we do is a beautiful thing. You know, she bought another house 5 minutes away from the house that we lived in together. And she knew how much I liked that house, that I think with her telling me her full story and being her true self, she wanted to at least give me that. And to me, that just means a ton, you know. There's definitely times when I'm walking through the house and I think about things and they're not always happy. Um, but that's okay. Like everything doesn't have to be happy. But I am one of those people that would prefer it to be like 95% happy.
Sure.
Right? Who wouldn't? I'm just a positive kind of person. I try to always look at everything glass half full. Um, and that's been like one of those things for me since finding that out in October of 2024. It's been pretty life changing. You know, like people always ask me, oh, like, you know, how has this affected you? I think it's affected me in the best way possible. Like it's given me the ability to get back out again, getting out of the nest again, be true to myself and find another break, you know, because it felt like it was a stagnant one for a while. Um, and we were just out there and, you know, no offense to your pond, but when I'm looking at the ocean and it looks like a pond, that just ain't for me. Like I need some waves. You know what I mean?
See,
Um,
but the beauty is though, Bert, is, and I agree with you, but what's interesting about what you just said is that you make waves.
oh, 100%. Yeah, I ruffle a lot of feathers. If you ask people that work here with me, they're going to tell you I'm the craziest person in the building because I am. You know, I try to challenge people's traditional thinking for abstract thinking. Like I'm always the one, and I've learned over the course of time uh, to say challenging and crazy things that are not offensive. That's the way I operate. Um, because I've done that in the past. I've said things that are challenging and offensive, and I'm just not going to do that anymore.
Well, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
You're right. It's one of those things, you know, you learn from it or you die from it. So I'm
Yeah.
going to be the one that learns. But yeah, it's been quite a ride for sure since leaving the nest, returning to a new nest, and then leaving it again. Uh, but I'm having a good time doing it, and I am super grateful for my life and just to be able to work for a company that really does care about me.
So I have to say, Bert, now again, I knew going into this, right? So let's just say this one more time. Rules are made to be.
Broken.
Thank you. So you're the only person on the podcast in my entire career that I've been doing this for who has gone taken up all the time on just a backstory.
You
So
like that?
I love it, and what's really cool about it is that and I really actually I highly respect it because it just really tells me is that you find your own break, you live by Bert's rules, and you create your own way. And I highly respect that. And this has been so much fun to actually get out of what my normal a lot of questions would be and really get to know you and have that, as I said earlier, to have the conversation and let the world eavesdrop in on us.
Oh yeah, they got a whole piece of me.
Which is amazing. And when I was speaking, and I can't remember if I said it to your group or not, but I talked a little bit sort of at the end about authenticity, and I think it's just really an interesting wrap up of how you let your now ex-wife, right, say, hey, you know what, you're being your authentic self, and I respect that, right? And she
Yeah.
let you be your authentic self, and you respect that, right? And then you just you still have the relationship, but both of you just get to be who you are. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
I think it is too. And like I told you earlier, I did look through the list of questions and I was wondering, you know, there's got to be a timeline on this, but I can also just tell a whole story and enjoy doing it, and I'm going to do it.
And it was amazing. So here, so I'm going to shift it up just a little bit, and we'll wrap up. Is instead of going through my list of questions, I have a question for you. Um, Knowing what you know now and the experiences, because you've had, your life has been right finding your break. Um, What advice would you give to your 10-year-old self?
My 10-year-old self would be do what makes you the most happy at that time. Um, don't try to future think or future plan or be who you think you're supposed to be because others tell you that's the person that you should be. Just be true to yourself and enjoy every single day. Because you never know. You don't know what day is going to be the last day here. And I didn't even touch on that, but I've definitely lost some really close friends at a young age. Um, and I think that also had a big part of shaping who I am, realizing that no days are guaranteed and being grateful for every day is extremely important. Not to say that I shouldn't plan, I'm trying to be better about planning, but be true to who you are on that day. That's what I would tell myself at 10 years old because I constantly always thought I had to be somebody that I wasn't and
Mm.
live up to these expectations that were put on me by others that I knew cared about me and still care. But I felt this pressure to be someone that I wasn't. So just be true to me. That's why I'm thriving right now. It's because I'm being true to me. I'm having a great time doing it. And uh, I finally allowed those pressures to kind of waver. Like, yeah, I want to be successful and I want to do a good job. And I also want to enjoy every single day of my life.
One of the things that I said when I was speaking to your group, your Vistage group, well, as you're with Chapel Hill, but say going faster is not about going faster. Going faster is about getting rid of resistance.
Yeah.
And that's what I just heard from you, right? Is, just, going with it, let it fly, nothing but tailwinds, right? There's gonna be headwinds along the way, but right, being grateful for both
Yeah.
and just being true to yourself. I think that's there's a really big lesson there.
100%. I mean, I feel like anybody that's successful in life, and I'm not talking about money, but they've just really figured out a way to enjoy it and deal with adversity head on and not let it break them. Just help build yourself from those experiences to be the best version of yourself. So, yeah, I'd tell my 10-year-old self to not worry about what anybody said. And that's what I'm going to try to teach my son and instill in him that he can do whatever he wants, no matter what. And that's going to be by me pushing him to do whatever he wants, not by me pushing him on what I think is what he should do.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. That's one thing I've learned as a parent of, letting my son I let him bowl his way and I let my daughter bowl her way, right? And all my job is just put up the bumper pads, right? And right, and we let them be who they are, and then we gotta, make sure they don't go in the gutter and then get to enjoy the show.
That's it, man. Keep him out of the gutter, keep him out of the trash.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all our jobs are, right?
Yeah.
So, one more question for you, and we'll see I would like to see where you go with this, because I think you kind of already answered it, but I'm curious. Um, is so Burt Dew, if you were standing on top of a mountain and the whole world was intently listening to you, what would you say?
I would say, look inside of yourself and determine what it is that drives you on a daily basis to be the best version of yourself and try to just tune out all the critics and the people that don't think you can do it and really just lean in to what gives you that extra gas. Like, what is it that really pushes you to want to enjoy and be that best self? Um, and some people are not competitors. I am, but I think really leaning into what drives each individual person is what makes the world such a beautiful place with having so many differing opinions, differing values, um, just thinking long and hard about that and what it is that you get up for in the morning.
Hmm.
Some people get up for a paycheck, some people get up because you've got a family to take care of. And some people, they don't have anything, but they still continue to get up. What is it that drives you? What makes you want to do this thing called life? And if you don't know, that's okay. I'm still trying to figure that out. I know that I got a lot of people out there that um look at me like, oh yeah, this guy's got it figured out. I'm like, I don't got it figured out, but I'm figuring it out and I'm going to continue to figure it out.
Life's an
So
adventure.
that's it.
Finding the break.
Find it.
Life is happening for you, not to you.
That is correct.
Well, Bert, this was the most original, very, very fulfilling podcast I've ever done, right? With the guy who has the best beard on the planet. But Bert, no, I really, honestly, I appreciate your vulnerability, your openness, your honesty, your character, your integrity. Like you are just who you are, and it's just so cool. I get to sit back and I get to kind of watch you surf and find your break, right? And then you get to surf the wave of life, and it is an absolute spectacle and amazement to watch how you do it.
Well, I really appreciate it, Warren. I'm just out here doing my thing.
Just out here surfing.
That's it.
I do want to thank you for your time. I do want to thank you for your stories. Now, if anyone wants to reach out to you, right, and get to know Bert, because who wouldn't want to, really, when you think about it, right, where would people go to find you, Bert?
And you can go to our website, chapelhilltire.com. Um, you can shoot me an email, burton at chapelhilltire.com. There's social medias out there, but I don't really do a ton of social media because I think that usually requires planning. I've got a few handles, but they haven't been updated in a while because I'm just living my life. I'm not putting it out there for the rest of the world to see, but I'm happy to share when giving an opportunity. So
All right. Well, we'll get any handles that you give us. We'll put in the show notes. If someone wants to reach out to you, have a conversation, then we'll have that there for them.
that
That's
sounds awesome.
right. There you have it, folks. We had an amazing time, really, right, with Burt Dew. Bert, rules are made to be.
Broken.
And this is Warren Berry, and I'm flocking off to take you beyond the pond to better the pond because we're better together. Thank you so much, Bert.
Thank you, Warren.